All right, boys, here's the cycle update. So I've been on a testosterone cycle for 40 days, 40 straight days at this point. At this point, I'm running 700 milligrams total androgens a week. I will get to the breakdown here in a bit. For a third of this cycle, I was running 560 milligrams of testosterone per week. That was in testosterone enanthate. We're going to discuss my lipids. We're going to discuss prolactin. I got that for the hell of it. It's pretty interesting. We'll discuss hematocrit. We will discuss my blood pressure, my physique, okay? What I've seen, the changes in the gym, what I've seen in terms of mass and fullness in my physique when I actually have a pump. Side effects, if there have been any side effects, I'll discuss those. We'll discuss hair loss, what I've done to ameliorate the potential for hair loss, kind of whether or not I'm seeing hair loss, whether or not it started and then it stopped or it's been persistent the whole time. And then we're also going to discuss sexual function. I think a good bit of this, we'll talk about health management, because there are some things on the bloods that are actually very surprising that I did not expect. And, we'll talk about the health management behind those blood markers, which I think is going to be very useful for people watching. So sit back, strap in, all right, grab a beer, chill out, because we're going to break down everything on my first testosterone cycle. All right, before we get started, really quickly, the special on the Torque Nootropics stack, so that is buy one, get one free, is ending relatively soon. Again, we're getting a new batch of Torque, and so my loss is your gain. We got to move bottles. Code for that is torquebogo. Look, it's an Adderall replacement, basically, without the side effects. Very, very powerful nootropic stack that I built. Code for that is torquebogo. It's buy one, get one free right now. Coaching, if you need to hire me on cycle design, TRT protocol design, sexual optimization and sexual dysfunction, that's where I get a bulk of my clients, fixing erectile dysfunction, fixing libido issues, dialing in people's TRT protocols. We've got a TRT specific protocol, okay, for those of you just TRT people that need to optimize. And we've got longer term one-on-one packages with me. I mean, these are ongoing coaching programs where we revamp and revitalize basically every marker, specifically relative to hormones, testosterone, sexual function, libido, dopamine, nootropic protocol design, a host of things encompassed in that. You can hire me in under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, so let's talk about the cycle itself. So the cycle started out with 80 milligrams of testosterone enanthate per day. So that is 560 milligrams per week. I was running that subcutaneously, and I eventually ran into test flu. Everything else was good. Libido, erections were good. I felt strong. I was getting stronger in the gym, and then I ran into test flu, whether that's response to too much carrier oil, or an otherwise immunogenic response, or a response to the major testosterone metabolite, which is proposed in the literature as well as on the forums, called etiocalanolone, which is used to actually stimulate fever and immunogenic responses. Guess it's kind of up in the air, but I couldn't tolerate 560 milligrams of test enanthate, at least at that point. So I then switched to 500 milligrams a week of testosterone propionate, and then 3 pumps of testosterone cream every day, which translates to about 210 milligrams a week for 700 milligrams a week of total androgens, and I've been running that the majority of the time. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, I bumped up the testosterone dose in general just to actually make it of injectable testosterone and even 700 milligrams. So I am running 100 milligrams now of testosterone propionate a day. That is split up into a 70 milligram injection in the morning and a 30 milligram injection at night, with also the addition still of 3 pumps of testosterone cream in the morning, just for added DHT to counter the negative effects of estradiol. Now, let's talk about like injection methods. So this here, I'm going to open this up. This is a 1-inch needle. This is what I'm drawing from. Okay, so here's my testosterone propionate. Get a little zoomy zoom on the prop. This is from Empower, and this is prescribed to me from Defy Medical. This is a 1-inch needle, okay? 1-inch needle with a 3 milliliter syringe. So I draw with this needle. I think the utility of drawing with a 3 milliliter syringe when you're drawing testosterone, especially high amounts, is that it doesn't take forever. And it's honestly probably about 20 seconds or so. And then I've got all the way up to the 70 mark. It's even less though for my 30 milligram injection later on in the day. However, I don't inject with this needle because it really started to hurt with all that prop. I just kind of wanted to give the muscle a little bit of a break. I'm injecting in the delts, switching between the delts and the glutes on both sides. So I've got Lure Lock 5/8 inch needles. Okay, so this is a slightly Slightly lower size needle, a slightly smaller needle, but actually if you look at it, yeah, that's about the best I can get that to focus. It's still a pretty long needle, and this will still hit the muscle. I honestly think if you're going to be doing shallow intramuscular, which is essentially what I'm doing, a little deeper than typical shallow, you want to be using a 5/8 inch needle. I just think you're going to get the muscle for sure there, whereas with an insulin syringe and a 1/2 inch, depends on how lean you are, depends on a host of factors. You don't always hit the muscle, and you might just be doing sub-Q. All right, so that's the actual injectable testosterone protocol. This is the testosterone cream that I'm using. It's 200 milligrams per milliliter testosterone cream. Again, this is made from Empower Pharmacy. Love this stuff. It's just very awesome, and that is applied transcrotally on the testicles in the morning. Okay, let's start with sexual function, okay? Because this is really important and really relevant to what we all talk about. You know, what are my erections like, and what is my libido like on cycle? Let's start with when I first started running 560 of anathate per week. Libido and erections on 560 milligrams of anathate per week, which was 80 milligrams every day subcutaneous, were off the fucking charts. My erections were strong, hard, and frequent. I got more random erections from the wind blowing than I think at any other time, like just running TRT doses of testosterone. My libido was very, very good. Okay. Highly insatiable on 560 milligrams of testosterone anathate a week, likely due to the extra DHT and to some extent that estradiol. I think DHT contributes more to libido than estradiol does. On just 70 milligrams. So when I made the switch to prop and cream on 70 milligrams of prop every day and 3 pumps of cream in the morning, libido was still pretty good, maybe a little less good than the anathate protocol, but tolerable and fine for me. Erections were great. Erections on that protocol were just throughout great. Throughout the entirety of the cycle, erections haven't changed much at all. They've been very hard, very frequent, very easy to get aroused during sex. And I haven't had, even though my estradiol is almost definitely above my typical TRT range, I haven't had any erection issues so far being on cycle, which I really appreciate. However, since making the change to 100 milligrams every day of prop and still 3 pumps of cream, so 700 total actual injectable androgens as well as the cream every day and 3 pumps, my libido has started to take a hit. Okay, so that happened in the last week and a half. My libido started trending downwards. I was noticing it and trying to devise an ideal plan on what to do without hardcore managing estrogen in a way which would mess with my lipids. Okay, so throughout I haven't taken an AI, and the purpose for that was twofold: to see how far I could get away with, how long I could get away with not managing estrogen, how far I could push it without any major side effects, as well as to not skew my lipids. That is very important to me. I've seen cases where people skew their lipids and it's hard for them, as an example, to get their HDL back up or their LDL back down. And I just don't want to get in a place where I'm having to try extra hard for considerable duration to get my lipids under control. I'd rather keep them under control the whole time. So I haven't managed estrogen much. However, I think that the side effect that comes from that is my libido dropping off in the last week and a half via increasing the dose of everything that increased the estradiol. And during that time, I actually did have some left nipple itchiness, and that only happens to me when estrogen gets very fucking high. It could be sitting at 55 or 60 and I won't have any estrogenic side effects, at least with higher doses of testosterone, and I will not have itchiness around the chest area, water retention, unless it's a long ester like cypionate, or otherwise estrogenic side effects. So since libido took a hit while erection stayed very good, I brought in a simple 500 milligrams calcium D-glucarate per day in the morning that usually solves libido issues for me if estradiol is just creeping up a little too high and causing some sort of inhibition, maybe in the dopaminergic neurons in the arcuate nucleus, which estradiol does inhibit, which plays a significant role in the hypothalamic pathways for libido. 500 milligrams calcium D-glucarate in the morning has brought my libido back to kind of normal baseline, which for me on TRT is always good. I'm always very interested in sex. I wouldn't say that it's bothering me throughout the day. There have been periods with other protocols where that has happened and I can induce that. I don't necessarily need that to be the case on this cycle. I will continue monitoring this. If in the next 2 weeks the libido gets worse, then I'll probably bump up the calcium D-glucarate a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be running Primo or anything else at this point, but I will be, metabolizing estradiol a little faster, preventing its effective recycling back into my body via using calcium D-glucarate. I'll probably just bump the dose up to 1,000 milligrams a day, 500 in the morning and 500 in the evening, and that will definitely solve that problem if libido takes a hit again, which right now it's pretty good. Again, relative to estradiol, I want to see how far I can push it, number one, but secondarily, I do not want to mess with my lipids, you know, and when you start using estrogen lowering agents, your lipids almost definitely take a hit, which is why when people go on cycles, you know, their lipids get skewed. It's largely due to the management of estradiol, as well as, you know, not a proper health management protocol in place. And so that's just not something that I want to take the risk of, you know, right now. Okay, so let's talk about lab markers. All right, lab markers. One thing I will have you guys know is I have total testosterone in the lab at this point that was ran yesterday. So that's like just at the peak of now running 700 milligrams of injectable testosterone plus 3 pumps of cream every day. So I would wager my testosterone is probably going to be between 5,000 and 6,000 nanograms per deciliter. That would be my best guess, with steroid plotter having me at 5,425 nanograms per deciliter at peak on just the 100 milligrams of prop a day. So that's excluding the cream. So I could be at 6,000, I could be at 6,500 at the absolute peak, which will trough back down as the cream comes out of my body for the next day's application of cream. But if I were to guess, I'm at 5,000 at least, probably 5,500, maybe 6,000. We're just going to have to see. By next week, late next week, I'll have those numbers. I also ran today, this morning, dihydrotestosterone. I think that, to me personally, relative to sexual function in my own metrics of conversion of testosterone to DHT, I'm just curious to see where the dihydrotestosterone is. So I'll have that on a part 2 along with the testosterone and the estradiol. So I've got estradiol that I ran also today. In addition to progesterone. Okay, I have all 4 of those markers on the part 2, which is going to be like later next week or something. By the way, if you hear like some weird loud hissing noise in the back, there's construction that's happening outside on my block. And so, yes, it is a pain in the ass, but I guess we're just going to have to deal with it. Let's talk about lipids. These are Precycle lipids. Okay, these are my Precycle lipids. So this is when I was running between 240 and 280 milligrams of testosterone propionate per week. These were my lipids. Cholesterol's in range. Triglycerides are good. My triglyceride to HDL ratio is reasonable and ideal. HDL maybe a little on the low side, but still within range. The only problematic marker on my Precycle lipids, this is where the surprise is going to come in, is my LDL is 104, which if you've looked at a lot of bloods for people on anabolic steroids or testosterone in general, this is pretty good. People's LDL is typically a lot higher than that. Again, I attribute that probably to cardio. I started running again in June, and I ran these, I think late June, early July is when I ran these labs. So these were the Precycle labs and lipids. And again, the only problematic marker here is my LDL at 104, which brings us to the post-cycle lipids and a really interesting surprise. I guess I should really say current cycle lipids. Okay, so here is the current lipid panel. This is really current cycle or mid-cycle lipid panel. Again, total cholesterol, reasonable range, below 200, it's at 150. Triglycerides are at 55. The cholesterol to HDL ratio, which should be under 5.0, is 3.4, so in a reasonable range. Now here's the surprise. My LDL is 92. Okay, so let's just step back and think about this. We'll talk about some of the health management stuff. My LDL went down from 104 to 92. That is significant when I'm running 700 fucking milligrams of testosterone per week. Why do I think that's happening? Well, let's just talk about HDL. HDL 44, again, in a reasonable place. My triglyceride to HDL ratio is it's 1.25. You want it ideally below 2.0. So it's very, very healthy. My non-HDL cholesterol in a very healthy place at 106. Now, look, the reason that I think my LDL has dropped is twofold. All right. Number one, I attribute a good degree of that to the use of this right here. Okay. So this is concentrated tocotrienols. I actually didn't even really start taking this for the purposes of lowering LDL or managing lipids. It was for mitigating hair loss. There was a large study of the people in the study had hair growth just from the use of tocotrienols, and they attributed that to the mechanism of reduction in scalp oxidative stress. So that's why I've been using this. I take one capsule of what is ultimately 400 milligrams of tacotrenols per day, and that is all. There's a mechanism for this. It's the inhibition of a hepatic enzyme, which is beta hydroxy beta methylglutaryl coenzyme A, or HMG-CoA reductase. Okay, so that's what it's basically inhibiting. That's what the tacotrenols are inhibiting, this hepatic enzyme, which is allowing my LDL to stay in a very reasonable place. In fact, in the scientific literature, tacotrenols do have a positive effect on lipids, and specifically lowering LDL cholesterol. Okay, so you might expect, and people typically expect, running a testosterone cycle or steroid cycle in general, that LDL is going to go through the roof, HDL is going to go significantly downwards. My HDL moved down 2 points from the last measurement, from 46 to 44, so it is trending downward, but it's still in range and fine. And my LDL went down. Okay, this is very surprising. It was surprising to me. I did not know, I did not suspect that the combination of cardiovascular exercise, which lowers lipids, and there are long exhaustive papers on this one titled Exercise and Lipids, which shows the mechanisms by which specifically cardiovascular exercise is a lipid management drug in and of itself. Okay, but I did not expect the LDL to be this good. This is perfect LDL. This is non-problematic LDL on 700 milligrams of testosterone. And again, I attribute that to the use of tacotrenols daily, as well as cardiovascular exercise. Specifically, I'm running 2 to 3 miles daily. I might take a break because it's whatever, like when I had test flu, I didn't run one of those days, or when I had to take a trip for my sister's baby that was born recently, I didn't run one of those days, but largely I'm running every day. So people understand my otherwise regimen for liver health, which never seems to be a problem for me on any amount of androgens or anything really. Even running high doses of nootropics back in the day, I never had any issues with liver enzymes at all. I think that's me being genetically blessed, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I've done anything to optimize that, but I am running a maintenance dose of 500 milligrams of Tutka every day. I'm running 200 milligrams of a bovine desiccated thyroid supplement per day. Don't know if that's contributing to any of these numbers. Probably not. It's just helping energy. 6,000 IU of vitamin D every day. That's just kind of a staple in my regimen, has been for many years. But on cycle, I have made it a point to eat Brussels sprouts every day, which are loaded with vitamin K2, which theoretically would, and K2 itself basically extracts calcium from the artery. So if there were to be, in a short cycle that I'm running, which there probably would be, I'd have to be running a cycle for a while and probably a gram or more, any degree of calcium buildup in the arteries, K2 in the mix, specifically from food, because I personally, and I know a lot of people who have side effects with the use of supplemental K2, because it's just pulling calcium from everywhere, not just your arteries. It's pulling calcium from places you might need it. Might be overloading your kidneys with calcium. There's all kinds of problems with supplemental vitamin K2 for some individuals, but I'm getting a good degree of K2 from Brussels sprouts, which I'm making a point to eat daily. I don't otherwise eat sprouts every day. I like them, but I don't eat them every day. Now I'm eating them every day. Let's talk about blood pressure. Now, I'll preface this by saying that my blood pressure has never been a problem for me, whether on cycle, not on cycle, on higher doses of test, but still TRT. Anytime in my life, I attribute that to 15 years of my adult life being a runner. So for more than a third of my life, I've been running. I think that makes a huge difference in your cardiovascular health, and that also may have contributed to where my lipids are to an extent at this point, but yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find my blood pressure at 120 over 70, 120 over 80. Normal blood pressure. It is always below on every cuff or any measurement that I've ever used, including at my endocrinologist's office. That's just my blood pressure. Generally, on cycle, I am running 5 milligrams tadalafil a day. Potentially the tacotrenols might be lowering blood pressure to some extent. I don't know if they have an effect on blood pressure. Obviously doing cardio, that is a significant reducer of blood pressure. And I'm running 2 to 3 miles every day. And I'm also doing a heavy gym session in the morning or in the evening, depending on when I can get it in. But my blood pressure has really never been a problem in my entire adult life. And it is now not a problem. Okay, this was ran at 3:40 p.m. yesterday. So I had already done my run for the day. I'd already eaten a big meal about 2 hours prior to this with a lot of sodium. Okay, a lot of sodium. And still my blood pressure is 114 over 59. In this particular reading, my heart rate was at 65, but my heart rate is between 52 and 65 throughout the duration of the cycle. You'd be hard pressed to find it over 70. The only time that happens is when I am doing cardio or working out in the morning. Okay, so blood pressure, I mean, these are the kinds of things you want to look at. Lipids, blood pressure, hematocrit, to justify higher doses, or at least to determine whether or not you're going to continue running a cycle. And for right now, and conceivably moving forward, definitely, almost definitely, my blood pressure is incredible. I run, again, 5 milligrams tadalafil a day, 10 milligrams on date nights sometimes, but that's not consistent. So I can't really attribute this very good number in blood pressure to the use of an occasional 10 milligrams tadalafil. Again, I think it's the cardio, as well as generally my blood pressure isn't high ever. And I do eat a lot of salt. When I go out and do runs, especially in the heat, because I'm burning salt, I'm taking between 1 gram and 2 grams of sodium chloride in tablets, chewable tablets, before I go and then post run. And then the post run meal is, food with a good degree of sodium. So I am just lucky, combined with hard work I've done with cardio over the years, to, get to this point where when running a cycle, my blood pressure is unchanged. All right, let's get back to these numbers here, because I want to have us look at hematocrit, and we're going to look at prolactin. Okay, so the hematocrit is 46.9. That's a very, very healthy number of hematocrit on such high androgens. I actually think that it would be lower than this, but some of this may still be due to lingering testosterone enanthate that is still in my system. But if it isn't, look, I'm running a high amount of androgens, so sure, it's going to go up. My hematocrit is up from 42. Okay, so it was at 42 pre-cycle. It is now up to 46.9, so call that 47. It is trending upwards. It is likely that I'll be able to get that right back down if I needed to. This is perfect. I don't even need to manage that. But if I needed to get this down to 43 or 44, like it just make me feel maybe a little more comfortable, I would just take between 300 and 700 milligrams of naringin, which is an extract from grapefruit that does lower hematocrit. It does for me. It has quantifiably on the bloods, and that would get it right back to where it needs to be. I also won't be on cycle forever. We'll talk about that at the end of this video here, like kind of what I'm going to do next. So I'm not really concerned with that, especially considering that's a really good number of hematocrit when you're on 700 milligrams of total androgens per week. Again, what I think is contributing to this while I'm running a cycle is cardiovascular work. I really don't, there's nothing else in my regimen aside from the fact that I don't smoke and I don't drink. Okay. If you drink, your hematocrit's going to go higher. And obviously if you smoke, your hematocrit's going to go higher. So those things contribute. But the cardiovascular exercise, in my opinion, is really what is keeping my hematocrit in range at such high levels of testosterone. At TRT doses, my hematocrit's 42 with my current regimen, and that is really induced by the cardio. Prolactin, I just figured for the hell of it, let's get this. My prolactin is normally between 8 and 12 if I'm not managing it. If I'm not doing anything like taking cabergoline or mercurines or Schisandra, then this is where it is. And it fell in the range where it always is, which is in that range between 8 and 13. So it's 13.7. Refractory period is fine. There's really no problems there, but I figured it would just be interesting for me to run it. Let's talk about physique. So this is pre-cycle. That's basically what my physique looks like on, whatever regular amounts of TRT. Between 200 and 280 milligrams of test prop was what I was basically running before I got on cycle. So, as you can see from even looking at me now, things are bigger now. Everything is just bigger. That's the one thing I noticed on cycles, just everything looks bigger. It's obviously I'm stronger in the gym. It's easier to push more weight, but physically speaking, everything is bigger. I have the same definition. I'm probably a little leaner at this point. I've got more striations, etc. But generally, that was my pre-cycle physique. It's just a smaller in general, still kind of in good shape, but now everything is a lot bigger. And this pic was taken just 2-3 days ago on a run, in downtown Pittsburgh when I was coming back to my car in the garage. And obviously I am just generally much bigger. Okay, so that's the major thing that I've noticed on cycles, that every one of my muscles is wider and bigger and has more mass. My chest is bigger. My shoulders are really starting to cap out. That's what I like. I mean, women like that look. I honestly love this look. I love how my shoulders look. I love how strong I am in the gym. So this is effectively where I'm at. I'm not even doing this for bodybuilding purposes. I'm kind of seeing how much test I can push. Sure, the anabolism is great, but it's more of an experiment to look at the labs, be curious about where estrogen goes, you know, how my dick is functioning on all of this, how libido is. That's really why I wanted to run the cycle. So anabolism is taking a somewhat of a backseat, although it is very nice to be very anabolic. So at the gym, 185 is my usual weight for incline press. Okay, incline press, I think that's a very important workout for building your chest. And I could usually only push that to about 5-6 reps until I was at failure, and then I have to take a significant break and then come back to the bench in about 2 to 3 minutes. Now I can push the same amount of weight of incline press, 185 total, but I can easily push that 10 to 15 reps. Like, this is the thing about running a test cycle and becoming stronger, is that like on weight that was heavy for me where I could only push 5 reps, I can now push 12 to 15, and it's easy. I can concentrate more on working the muscles by going a little bit slower. I'm even giving it more resistance than just fast pushing up and down. I'm really focusing on time under tension, and I'm able to do that, able to build the muscle. I think, you know, androgens, anabolic steroid cycles, testosterone in general at high doses gives you the ability to actually do the workout that you may need to grow muscle. If you're not anabolic enough, you're not going to be strong enough to lift a certain amount of weight. And you could get there, but it's just going to take a long progression over a long period of time to be able to lift heavy amounts of weight. So yeah, that's the progress there. Generally, I am bigger. I am veinier. You know, there's just fucking veins that I've never could really see, or that never popped out, especially on my shoulders. When I have a pump, I actually look gnarly, totally fucking gnarly in the gym. The pump is actually out of control. I generally have more mass. And that is what I've noticed physically in terms of physique. I am a lot stronger, a lot more veiny, but I have more mass. Everything on my body, especially when I have a pump, is just a lot bigger. And it's easier to lift heavier weight. It's just like, it seems like lightweight. It's actually fucking bizarre. This is my first testosterone cycle. So people that have been running steroids for a while, or running high doses of test, know that this is the case. And for them, this just is like, it's just par for the course. So yeah, you're going to be able to lift more. You'll be a lot stronger. It is really super interesting. Okay. Cardio. Let's talk about cardio. My cardio is either the same or slightly better. Some days, like regardless of what TRT dose I'm on, or even on the cycle, it's just, I'm sucking a little more wind than others. Like, who knows what's the cause of that? Some days it's just a little harder to run, but you still run anyway. And then other days it's a breeze. That hasn't changed on cycle. You know, there's some days where it's like I'm struggling to run my 2 to 3 miles. I'm running at a relatively faster pace than a very slow jog. And then there are some days where I, after 3 straight miles running in the city, doing high intensity sprints at certain points, crossing lights in the city, where I'm barely out of breath. Okay, so my cardio is either the same, my cardiovascular function is either the same or slightly better. Again, there are some days when I'm running where it's just a breeze. Like, I don't feel like I've been taxed at all. I can continue running if I wanted to. I just don't like running long distances because it is terrible on your knees and makes you want to eat substantially more calories. All right, let's talk about the feels. How do I feel on this cycle? So feel amazing. All right. I feel great. My mood is great. I think I'm generally happier, a little more happier. That's probably due to the extra serotonin receptor optimization, which is being induced by estradiol. Estrogen serves to an extent to, I guess, somewhat be a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, at least in terms of concept, you know, keeping neurotransmitters around, really preventing their clearance. I can definitely feel that in my mood. I sleep like a baby. Listen, a lot of people on especially high doses of testosterone, cypionate or enanthate, have problems sleeping, and I'm really no different on high doses of cypionate, but I can dose the high doses of the same amount of testosterone propionate and not have problems. I just respond much more favorably in higher doses using testosterone propionate compared to testosterone cypionate. I have no side effects. I sleep really well. Come 10:30 or 11 p.m. at night, you know, after I've exhausted my brain with research and thinking and work and business and leisure and whatever, I'm ready to go to sleep. And I go to sleep. I do not wake up except for to go to the bathroom once, if that. And then it's 5 or 6 in the morning and I'm up again and I'm ready to go to the gym. So I haven't had any side effects regarding sleep. I sleep like a fucking baby regardless. Again, that's just me, neurotransmitter profile, diet. Again, if I was drinking 2-3 times a week, my sleep would be significantly worse. Like, it would actually be to the point where it would be somewhat problematic, but now I sleep great. I feel very masculine, as you might imagine. Again, we're going to get DHT reading and do a follow-up part 2 for this next week, but Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm on Proviron and I'm not on Proviron. Obviously, that's the high level of DHT. Very assertive, in control. And my body, up until this point and moving forward, hasn't complained. It hasn't complained about this cycle. I've gotten no heart palps. I don't have any anxiety. You know, I don't have any like lightheadedness or head pressure or weird neurological shit happening. My body's just not complaining at all from this cycle. It honestly likes it. You know, my overall assessment on how my body feels, looking at my bloods, okay, as well as looking at my subjective experience throughout, you know, the course of a day, is my body's very comfortable, at least at this point, with 700 milligrams of testosterone propionate per week. Again, testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, estradiol, progesterone, just for the fuck of it, is coming next, and that's going to be on part 2 of this sort of cycle update, which is going to be coming next week, later next week, or possibly the week after. What is my plan for coming off? How long am I going to be on this cycle? Unknown for how long I'm going to be on. I've got some Indractum DHT gel coming in. I also have DHT powder that I intermittently used experimentally to see what it would do. And it's very fucking powerful. And I can't wait to talk about it, but I really can't experiment with it, especially if I'm going to be running dihydrotestosterone labs. I just don't want it to affect the cycle. So the next experiment will be with DHT powder and DHT cream. And at that point, I will get off the cycle. I mean, there's no point for me to be running DHT itself. I've got standalone powder. As well as intermittently or switching between that and Indractum DHT gel, basically, which will be actually on the sex organ. I'm just really interested in a host of things that I can maybe pull from that to give you guys data wise and do some content about. So when I'm running that, I won't be running a cycle. I will likely come off at that time, maybe a couple weeks from now, maybe a month from now. I don't really see the cycle lasting any more than a month moving forward. So in total, probably be about 70 days of this cycle. When I come off, I will be back on 280 of prop a week, 300. Because I've run high doses and it hasn't messed with my lipids, I might even run like 350 milligrams of testosterone a week and just, you know, call that TRT moving forward, and just run that as long as I can while monitoring labs. That's the goal. At least that's the plan at this point. I do like how I feel on higher levels of testosterone, and I'm tolerating it very fucking awesomely. So, you know, my TRT dose will be slightly higher than a normal TRT dose at between 300 and 350 milligrams a week once I come off, and I'll keep you guys posted on when that happens. Oh, lastly, hair loss. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. So again, tocotrienols have been very effective in the literature for hair loss. Again, I was shedding in the beginning stages of the cycle, and noticeably looking at my head from the top, you would see spots, you would see open spots, and those open spots are not there anymore. I am not pulling hair from my head when I've gotten out of the shower, when I run my hands through my hair, like sitting over my sink and then seeing hair fall out, which was happening in the beginning. It is not happening now. What can I attribute that to? I don't know. I am derma rolling once a week with a 1.5 millimeter derma roller to the point of drawing blood. And I am taking tocotrienols, which in addition to the lipid lowering positive benefits, has studies behind it, which show that a large degree of people in that study had a significant regrowth of their hair via reduction in oxidative stress in the scalp. So maybe it's the tocotrienols, maybe it's my good genetics. Again, I was born with a full head of hair when I was a baby. So are everybody else in my family that's from my mom's side. Her dad, my grandfather, had a full head of hair up until his death at 70 something. So I do have good hair genes, okay? I do have good hair genes, but I was shedding in the beginning and I'm not shedding now. So is it the derma rolling? Is it the tocotrienols? I don't know, but if I were to guess, it would be both, with more emphasis put on the tocotrienols because they've got studies behind them inducing hair growth. All right, so that's it, boys. Next week, later in the week, I should have total testosterone, DHT, estradiol, and progesterone. So we will do a part 2 looking at those labs specifically and correlate that, at least in the discussion, to my sexual function and my general feels throughout this. And I think that'll be another super interesting video. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Thank you for being with me on this breakdown through this journey. Questions in the comment section. I'd love to answer them all. Much more to come. All right, again, guys, coaching 2,500 happy clients, and this hasn't even been updated with recent clients in the last 4 or 5 months. It's more than that at this point. Happy people, I'm taking people's TRPT protocols, redesigning them so that they're getting libido, sexual function, energy, anabolism, everything they want. I've been doing this for years. I can dial in your protocol relatively easily. Maybe you need to switch esters. Maybe you need to inject more at a time. There's a host of strategies. We've got endless tools in the toolbox. If you need to hire me for that, you can do so at livecortex.com in the TRT protocol design consult. I've got larger scale one-on-one packages for androgens, hormones in general, sexual function, sexual dysfunction, libido and erectile optimization. I'm the guy that gets the guys that haven't been able to fix that anywhere else, whether on TRT or otherwise, and we get you fixed relatively quickly. You can book me in under a minute at livecortex.com. Again, the Torque Stack needs no introduction. Powerful Adderall alternative without the side effects. That is buy one, get one free right now. The code for that is torquebogo, and you can find the code in the link down in the description of this video. Go get a bottle. You are going to love that stack. All right, brother. It has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you guys. Much more content coming soon. Live stream this Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So look forward to that. Be there. Have noties on so that you can show up for the live stream and ask questions about all the stuff that we typically talk about. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And boys, I'll talk to you on the next one.